You know, Gandhi once said you can judge a society by how they treat their animals. In America, however, you might want to be a dog instead, because Republicans are considering huge cuts to Medicaid. Don't worry, baby, it's just for people. And for the record, if you didn't know, Medicaid is for poor people. It allows for health care in situations where people can't afford it. And Republicans, they're talking about cutting it drastically. Now, you might be thinking, what the f*** is wrong with these people? To which I would say, how much time you got?
Yes, ma'am. I'm calling from West Virginia, and which was a red state for Donald Trump. And they have a place called down here Public Debt. And a lot of my neighbors would vote for Trump. They walking around scared, crying, nervous, and they were forever Trumpers. But on a personal note, I'm a diabetic and I'm on Medicare. And when Joe Biden was in there, my insulin was $6 for a 28-day supply. I just went to CVS to get my new supply. It went back up to $80, they said, because the American Recovery Act was canceled. So it went from $6 to $80. So I don't know if anybody else out there on Medicare.
Okay, one type of cut being discussed would target the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, their Medicaid expansion population. Instead of directly eliminating the expansion, Congress, oh, these guys are smart, they would keep it in place but reduce its federal funding, shifting those costs to the states. In other words, Mike Johnson and Trump and the rest of these feeble cockwaffles would shrug their shoulders and go, oh, sorry, that means the states will have to make those tough calls. And they are tough. And the impact on the poor?
I don't really have a plan. That's not a great thing to have to admit to anybody, but that's just not how my life has worked out since I graduated college. Every time I get sick, I get, if it can't be fixed with Advil, NyQuil, and a good night's sleep, I don't really have a solution for it. I don't know what I would do if I got very ill or very injured. Honestly, I haven't been to a doctor since my 11th grade physical. Between all of the obligations I already have, like utilities and rent and, student loan payments, within my budget, there's no way I can afford healthcare. If something bad happened to me, if I were in an accident or if I developed some kind of serious illness, there's no possible way I could afford it. I don't have that kind of savings. My savings would be gone in an instant. I have no plan.
Look, if Medicaid funding is cut, millions of Americans would lose access to health care, and the healthcare system would be strained. States would have to reduce services and restrict eligibility, which would remove care for people who need it the most. Poor people would have a harder time accessing life-saving medications, chronic condition treatments, and acute illness care. Families would have more medical debt and less financial security. Many rural hospitals would just close, which would impact the stability of the entire healthcare system. At emergency rooms, they'd be overburdened. This would hurt everybody. Well, not everybody.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Come on up here, Elon.
Currently, Medicaid helps millions of Americans, including lower-income households, seniors, pregnant women, kids, people with disabilities, and people with mental health issues. But wait till you hear the blatant lies that Trump and the Republicans are telling Americans. That's next. But first, I want to remind you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's easy. Easier than waiting for Dairy Queen to say something stupid.
Indictable.
And for every new subscriber, Melania will call you personally and tell you to f*** off. Well, first it was Social Security.
That you probably haven't ever heard from a politician. It will be my objective to phase out Social Security. Nice. To pull it up by the roots and get rid of it.
And now it's Medicaid, although to your face, that's not what they're saying.
Close to 1 in 5 Americans are on some form of Medicaid, which is health care the government pays for, mostly for low-income Americans. But could changes to the program soon be on the horizon? In Washington, there is at least some confusion as to what President Trump wants. The confusion stems from what the president said on Fox News recently, a commitment to not cut Medicaid.
Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
You don't have to.
But then, just hours after the interview aired, President Trump endorsed a Republican proposal in the House of Representatives that could be voted on next week that is expected to look at the possibility of changes in Medicaid.
Medicaid has never been on the chopping block.
In recent days, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson has talked about the possible Medicaid changes being eyed by conservatives. They include putting in place new policies like work requirements for some on Medicaid.
If you add work requirements into Medicaid, it makes sense sense to people. It's common sense.
Go f*** yourself.
Okay, if Republicans cut funding for Medicaid, there's two scenarios. Scenario one, states would continue to fund their Medicaid expansions despite the greater cost, resulting in a 17% increase in state Medicaid funding over 10 years. This number would go higher if anything like a pandemic or recession caused a new surge in Medicaid enrollment. Scenario two, states would drop their expansions entirely, kicking 20 million low-income people out of their insurance coverage. Oh, and one more thing. If they're successful with cutting Medicaid, Medicare's next. Welcome to the Republicans' new American health plan, which is be rich or die trying.
Damn right.
I'm as mad as hell.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Tick-tock.
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.